Ladies and gentlemen, in this Red Gaming Technical video, we're going to be discussing recent comments from CD Projekt RED, and they've been discussing development of Witcher 3 on the next generation consoles. And we're also going to be discussing recent comments from IHS, which of course have been stripping down both the PS4 and the Xbox One. And with this, we're going to discuss exactly what their thoughts are in development on both machines, as well as the similarities on both machines. So it's pretty common knowledge for most people on the internet about now that the PS4 is the easier of the two consoles to develop for, right? It's pretty much taken as a fact by this point. However, this interview from CD Projekt RED actually points out the opposite. They start out by saying, this is CD Projekt RED, that on the PS4 it's very good to have fast memory. Everyone is really happy about that, but the problem is the game has to function on everything. Now, we're not holding it back, he added. It's just that we're not at the stage right now to go and optimize each platform. Specifically, we want to make the game and the whole engine run on everything with all the features and bells and whistles, and then optimize. Now, this is the part, out of quote for a second, this is the part I don't really understand. He says, I don't see a major power difference. The memory is very different, but I said that before. Pure computation power, if you just measure that, there's no major difference. Now, I'm not exactly sure how he's coming to that, but this is very different to what a lot of developers are saying. But as I said, this is an interview with Eurogamer. We'll go into the other interview in just a moment. The Xbox One is pretty easy to understand because it's not just the hardware, it's similar to PC, but everything like the SDK, source development kit, the API, application programming interface, is really similar to what you would find on a PC. On the PS4, this is a bit more complicated. But personally, I worked on the PS3 before. For the PS3, it was very important to have a community to share the information in some ways, but now it's much easier because everyone uses their PC knowledge and possible previous console knowledge to reach the limits. He also pointed out, I saw how Microsoft opened up certain parts that they got rid of from developers. They opened them up like, oh, okay, you can now have this backdoor. It's risky, but you can do this and that. By the way, they're talking mostly about ideas for programming techniques. He also said, I don't know if they're going to be doing the same with the Xbox One, as we're not at that stage to open up something new. We would have done what we have right now, and maybe we'll have some more low-level access in the future. In other words, they're talking about allowing lower-level access to the APIs, to program interface, and so on. So it's also like you would open up new hardware and anything. There's nothing new in there. It's new ways to do something. Both companies are already using all the knowledge they have from previous products to make the APIs tailored to the game. So I expect they'll be doing something like, okay, you can do this. It's extremely risky and only do it if you know what you're doing, but you can do this. Now, obviously, out of quote for a moment, they are talking about, for example, coding low level, which basically means low-level access to the GPU so you can better program it, techniques to get around, say, maybe improve performance, but obviously it can be risky. In other words, it can lead to game-breaking crashes and stuff if you don't exactly know what you're doing when you're doing that. But meanwhile, before we continue with that, let's talk about IHS. So they are a research firm which specializes in console game research. And they said it's interesting that AMD have taken this core central processing unit, CPU, and GPU in both the Xbox One and the PS4. It's a very different landscape from the hardware of just a few years ago, when IBM was dominating the core CPU slot in both the Xbox 360 and PS3. Somewhat off topic just for a moment, the Xbox 360 and PS3 CPU is actually really similar when it starts out. The main processor for the PS3, the power processing element, was actually used for the Xbox 360. What they basically did is they put 3 of those power processing elements together, and basically they made the Xbox 360 CPU. The PlayStation 3 CPU is just one of those elements, but with tons of SPEs, also known as synergistic processing elements. The basic idea is that they're kind of similar, but think of them as brothers, very different brothers in how you develop and program for them. The cell actually has quite a lot of power in it. It can actually be utilized very much like the compute functions of a lot of modern day GPUs, but you can search for cell on PS3 cell on this very channel, and there's a lot of information on exactly what the differences are. But anyway, both chips are built on 28nm process geometry, have the same number of CPU cores, possess similar silicon die surface area between the two, suggesting similar amounts of functionality and processing power. Even the net power requirements of the two consoles are very much alike, which further underscores the functionality. Similarly, the two consoles are not clones, but are definitely related. End quote. So, it's a little bit of a controversial comment from The Witcher, and I'm going to be very curious to see what people make of this. Now, what it is possible is that CD Projekt RED don't have so much experience programming for an OpenGL environment, the PS4's environment, because or they might be trying to be a little bit diplomatic, or it's possible that they're going to be running the two systems at different resolutions, or another possibility is they're not talking magnitude here. They're not talking like the PS4 is like 2 or 3 times more powerful than that of the Xbox One. Now, the internet is already going kind of crazy, and you can guess which forums I'm talking about. It's the normal ones. And people are just completely puzzled with exactly what they're talking about. And this isn't fanboyism, and this isn't anything else other than it just flies in the face of what every other major developer has stated. Plus as well, if you do the maths yourself, just in terms of raw GPU power, it's about 50% difference. So unless there's something that we just don't understand yet, which I suppose is possible, or the fact that every other developer who's really spoken out about this and has been completely honest is wrong. I mean, for example, DICE. They were running Battlefield 4 900p versus 720p on the Xbox One, as well as having higher frames per second. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on here. One of the theories that I'm hearing, and it's possible, is that they just don't have that much experience with the PS4's development systems yet, maybe because they're more familiar with the Xbox One, so they're just easily able to just fly with it. Remember, typically they are PC developers anyway, so they've automatically got a helping hand. I'm not exactly sure why they're saying this, and I'm rarely stumped. But this is one of those situations where I honestly don't understand why they're flying in the face of pretty much every other developer out there. DICE, indie developers, just basic raw specifications. So I'm not exactly sure. All I can think of is right now they know something, they have better experience on one platform or the other. Anyway, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this. I don't want to say too much more because I want to do a little bit of more research on this before I make any further comments, because I don't think it's fair for me to just randomly start to speculate. But as I said, I have given a few thoughts of what I think it could be, but obviously the internet is kind of blowing up right now. You guys can do the Googling for it. You know the websites I'm talking about, NeoGAF, Reddit, so on and so on. There are others, I'm sure you know what they are. Anyway, I'll leave you guys to it. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video, even though I'm a little bit perplexed by it, but there you have it. You cannot understand everything, because then what is the point? That's my opinion. I don't know if that made sense, but anyway, I'm going to get going. So take care. Bye for now.